Welcome to the Neurodivergent Parenting Podcast. I am Melissa Cox, and I'm here because, like you, I'm trying to make sense of this beautiful mess of neurodivergent family life. Parenting is chaos with brief moments of order. Neurodivergent parenting is chaos on steroids. Each week, we'll sink into real conversations about this journey, not the Pinterest perfect version, but the real one where we can share strategies that actually work for us, feel seen, heard, and build a community where we genuinely understand each other. So, whether you're listening while pacing your kitchen for the 10th time today, or finally sitting still after everyone else has gone to bed, you're in the right place. Let's figure this out together, one beautifully chaotic day at a time. And today I have a guest with me who I will allow to introduce herself.
Thank you. So my name is Kristy Caceres, and I am a parent of 4 children. And in my professional life, I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker almost 25 years. I'm also going back to school for more stuff. Learning is always good. And in my home life, let's see, uncertified nurse, uncertified physical therapist, all the things. And I also homeschool 2 out of the 4 of the kids. And all 4 of my children have some level of special need, but 3 of them would be considered neurodivergent with the specific diagnoses that go along with that. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm happy to have you here. So like I said, I usually start with an easy question. It should be easy. Do you have so what's your favorite special interest or STEM at the moment?
Okay. I mean, there's always doom scrolling Facebook and YouTube and Pinterest and, exploring all those rabbit holes that could go for hours. So special interest other than that, because that's definitely a thing. I guess, I mean, the thing that I do for myself, I try to do for myself and weekly during certain seasons is I play co-ed softball. I'm not promising I'm good at it. I'm just saying it gets me out of the house.
You don't have to be good at something for it to be an enjoyable hobby or special interest.
And interacting with adults.
Yeah.
So that is what I kind of do for myself. And so I guess that would be my special interest. And also figuring out how to organize, like, what's the next structure, miracle that I could figure out that has my house running smoothly, because things are very chaotic, like you said.
Yeah, I think like spatial stuff with a neurodivergent family is just a constant game of like, okay, what's working right now?
Right. Yes. Yep.
Even if it was working, that doesn't mean it still
changes up. I mean, that's the thing. And I didn't realize that until my oldest was maybe 7 or 8. And, she had been diagnosed with ADHD and some language delays or a language disorder. And I'm a social worker. Like, this is what I went to school for. And, I've also been a foster parent as well. So before I had birth children, I was fostering teenagers. So the teenagers, not so much, because like they kind of do their own thing anyway. But with my oldest, when she was about 7 or 8, trying to put together all these like wonderful behavior plans and routines that I would talk to my, families that I'm working with about, and realizing that you actually have to revisit that weekly, monthly, like all the time. What worked yesterday isn't going to work tomorrow. And, depending on the kid is how frequent you have to do that. I think that's more of an ADHD thing. It is also so I have a child also with autism, and that's sort of this weird combination because he's also got ADHD. So yes, you have to kind of change it up and do the novelty thing, but he also really very much does not like the change. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out too, kid.
I am also ADHD, autistic and ADHD, so I feel that and I understand it personally, and I am just as frustrated as they are.
I'm
Like
telling you, yeah.
for
Yeah.
my own, for like my own stuff, I'm trying to constantly like, okay, what can I do to make it interesting enough
Yeah.
that it draws my attention and it does the things it needs to do, but also still like
Familiar.
familiar enough. Yes, that is
Yes.
a really good word. Because it needs to be familiar, because otherwise I'm gonna, possibly trigger a meltdown. And as an adult, those are a little smaller usually. Those are little because I have more control over my environment.
Mm-hmm.
But for kids, like I can absolutely understand why it triggers like a huge meltdown.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been an interesting journey. And it's, again, I think me being a professional in the field and understanding the training that goes on, and then also understanding that that only gives you a certain amount of insight into what's going to work with a family. That also, so that helps me professionally, but it also helps me understand that when providers and professionals are working with my family and giving, oh, this is, do this, I think it has helped me understand that they're fallible too.
Yeah.
And because otherwise, I feel such pressure they clearly know, right? Like, even if I have some training in the mental health field, when you go to a specialist who is trained specifically in this particular thing, you feel like, well, they know, right? Like they would know. But thankfully I have enough of that insight and experience and seeing both worlds to understand, like they know the book stuff. They have experience with families, but they don't have experience with my family and my child. And so having that sort of perspective has helped me a little bit, because you still fall into that, like, well, I mean, they said to do this, so I'm going to do it. It has helped me a bit take the pressure off and understand and give myself grace and give my kids grace and understand that it's a journey, and it's a daily journey, a weekly journey, and the journey's not going to look the same next week that it did this week. So
Yeah, trusting ourselves as parents is a constant journey.
yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't think that ever completely stops.
Mm-mm.
I think it just changes.
Yeah. I would
And
agree.
it's just like, I mean, it's the same thing that I encountered early on, because I am very much a reader. I want to read and figure out why people are the way that they are and like why things are happening, because if I can just read enough, then I will be able to fix it. And that's not how life actually works, but
Yeah.
what I want to do.
Yeah.
But reading parenting books is sort of maddening because
Yes.
you don't get the same. You're like, okay, what kid are you talking about? Because this is not who my kid is.
Yeah.
And there are some, parenting books about specifically autistic and ADHD kids, but even that, it's so personal.
Yeah.
I think the most help that I have found personally is online groups and
Yes.
the ability to share experience and
Yes.
validate that those experiences are not, you're not crazy. You're not like, you don't have the one kid in a million. You just also have a zebra. Like you have a zebra, like that person has a zebra.
Right.
We're
And the stripes are never the same.
Yeah, and the stripes are always different, but also like trying to parent a zebra like a horse is just not going to work out.
That's a good analogy. I like the zebra analogy because there's a pattern to zebras, right? Like there's some commonalities. When we see the black and white stripes or the brown and white stripes or whatever, we understand that's a zebra. But when you analyze the stripes, no one is the same.
Yep.
And so there's these common, there's these commonalities, but there's these intricate differences that can make all the difference as to how that one intervention that you read about is going to play out with your kid. And understanding that then you might have to tweak it. Maybe you take that intervention and you just make it your own and make it for your kid. So, because there also is power. I agree with you with the Facebook groups. And once you find some people who have enough of your experience that you can relate to, it's really powerful. I have one child, my youngest child has a medical condition that is so misunderstood and so like just not the medical community and the parenting community, like who are actually dealing with all this. And I'm not going to say like the actual thing for company,
Yeah,
I don't want to put that out there
absolutely.
for her, but such a disconnect. And I'm looking at the family, the in the Facebook group, and I would say 99.9% of doctors prescribe a certain regimen for this medical condition. And 99.9% of parents in the group are saying it's making it worse. Is
Oh my
anybody
goodness.
finding out that it's making this thing worse? We can't handle it anymore. It's so bad. And you go back to the doctor and maybe you even go to a different doctor and they do the same thing and they say the same thing. And it's basically, you must be doing it wrong because what we're saying works. And it 100% doesn't work. There's even Facebook groups now, parenting Facebook groups for this medical condition that's like, parents against whatever it is that the regimen is, right?
Yeah.
And it's because the medical community will not listen.
Disconnected. They're
It's
so
it's
often very disconnected from what is actually happening.
so
And
frustrating.
I mean, this is like a general issue that I have with the medical community, right? Is like the inability for so many doctors, like it is rare for me to find a medical professional that will actually listen and consider that maybe they don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so difficult because I'm like, it's like you were saying with the social work, when you learn in school, that's great information. And that's like, there's so much good information that you now have, but everything is different on the ground.
Yeah.
And there are so many variances, so many like things that you can't possibly know until you're in it.
Yeah. It's 100%. And I used to supervise a mental health team at a local medical center. And I remember, and also so just to give a little bit of background, my parents also were foster parents while I was growing up. And several of the children that they fostered had reactive attachment disorder and other things going on, right? And so when I supervised the team, I remember a very specific conversation I had with one of my team members. And because she was kind of venting about like, I think it might be the parent that's like the problem here. It's not the kid. And that happens. That happens, right? But I said to her, I said, you do not know what it is to live with a child with mental health problems or behavioral problems until you have done it. Like you don't know what that is like. And it can be crazy making. And, not to label that as a official label here. Okay.
Yeah.
Non-diagnosed, but like you feel like you're losing your mind and you can then look like that to other people looking in. It's like that mom is a nut, and that's really um that is then you have to check that in the professional in the mental health field and with clinicians and she to this day I still have contact with that the person that I had supervised, and she's like, I'll never forget you told me that because it really helped me to understand that what I'm from the outside looking in, and that people are dealing day in and day out with kids who are doing things that just are stressful for the family. And so, again, that really does help me experience the system
Mhm.
in a little bit of a more patient way, grain of salt, whatever it is, because otherwise I might, buckle under the burden of like the recommendations. And sometimes I almost have, unfortunately, but yeah.
I mean, I think that's fairly normal, like that experience of just trying to find how to work with the people that you know should be able to help, and that it's their job to help,
Yeah.
and also knowing that something isn't working, something isn't right. Like, and just also, like, even if you can have faith that it is going to work, because there are definitely times where like I'm like, I know that this requires time. I know that it does, because there are certain, strategies and practices that like you literally just have to practice enough until it clicks with the kid. Especially in my life, like with preventing meltdowns before, right? So
Right.
getting some of that getting some of that energy expressed beforehand so that it doesn't build up and build up.
Hmm. Hmm.
um and finding ways to deal with that just takes trial and error a lot of
Hmm.
times, and that
Yep.
sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks so much, because they're suffering and you are suffering, and you don't know what to do, and you just want their pain to stop.
Yeah.
And it's you can trust that it will work, and it can still be really, really hard.
Hmm.
And I think, like, again, just having community where there are other people that acknowledge, yeah, this shit is hard. And not in a not in an autism mom way, because like I don't want to make it about me. I just want to acknowledge that it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I don't I also think that when we start to acknowledge that it's hard, and we can see our own struggles, like our own struggles in that so many of us experience the moment of realizing, hey, so I have like really similar patterns. I have really similar experiences throughout childhood, and I learned to tamp those down, and maybe they came out in different ways. They came out in, like, maybe they present differently right now, because we all develop, maladaptive coping strategies sometimes, or different ways to express that, like anger, or
Hmm.
sadness, depression, deep depression. um and like realizing that it's all tied together. And like one of my favorite people that I follow, cats don't have dogs, and that we just we realize that we are very similar, and that maybe we should start addressing our own stuff, and that also helps us um to help them, because
Yeah.
it's like if we can acknowledge some of that internalized ableism,
Hmm.
then we can open up to helping them say it's okay if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, it makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that so that also going into the whole like address our take care of ourselves, the oxygen mask on our at least I'll speak for myself, I'm so bad at it. I've been in and out of interventions for myself, realizing exactly what you've said, and say I need to take the time, and then you know the kid stuff starts getting in the way. And then the way that the way that people have to run a business is like if you cancel last minute, et cetera, et cetera. Well, with children, 4 kids as a single mom, and all of them, and have these it's unpredictable. It's
Yeah.
so unpredictable. And so I found myself like having to cancel last minute a lot of time. And I was like, apparently this is not the season where I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. And maybe there's other ways, that's a formal intervention, right? And I really want to get back into it. It is part of how I need to make myself a better parent. Like that's part of it. But, there are other ways like being in the Facebook groups, getting support that way, uh, reading, listening to podcasts, taking what you can from where you can
Mhm.
at midnight after the kids are, because there's no therapy.
Yep.
There's, I don't think even BetterHelp will, has midnight therapists. Maybe they do. I don't know. I can maybe.
I don't know. I mean, and I think that's also like why I ended up turning to the coaching sphere, because there's so many people that like it's just like any industry, you have to be cautious, and you have to be like, you have to use your discernment and to see like who is real and who's just saying things that
Yes.
are not actually going to help you. But if you just hang out for a while, usually you can find some of the people who really have something helpful to say and
Yes.
helpful that they do.
Yes.
And I think that's like, I mean, that's unfortunately that's the case with medical like professionals as well. Like in the industry, there are plenty of people who can actually help. It's just that you have to wade through and deal with insurance and deal with all of the things
The
and
system.
and
Bureaucracy.
I understand the need for the system,
Mhm.
but also as an ADHD person, it is untenable.
Yeah. Yeah. The steps and you have to be a like CEO of your
Yeah.
of your administrative, functions in your life to be able to get through an application process for just one, provider or whatever. It is a lot. It's almost a full-time job just to fill out applications and biopsychosocial histories and insurances and open the mail and get the bill. And it's just, I tell my providers, I'm like, if there's a copay, you need to collect it from me now. Cause I'm
Yeah.
not opening the bill. I'm just not gonna, you're never gonna
Like
get
it's gonna fall off the list. It's not gonna happen.
you better do it now while I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
And I think like I will say like finding those little things like, hey, you need to do this now, and advocating for yourself is
Yeah.
incredibly important and helpful, because you're taking the load off later. You're taking the like, that you're not going to be able to do that very well. So
Yep.
how can I preempt that? How can
Yes.
I deal
Yep.
with that now?
I'm just telling them, here's the thing. Your medical bill will sit on my counter for 12 months, okay?
Mhm.
I'm not exaggerating.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, those things are important. And the advocacy part that you were just, mentioning, learning to speak up is for sure a skill. I try to have my kids learn that from an early age. It's really important for them. So like, my oldest is 17 now. She's been on an IEP since elementary school. Since middle school, I've requested, and the teams don't do this as a matter of course, but I would be like, I need her there. Like she needs to hear the language we're using,
Yeah.
the discussions we're having. She needs to weigh in on this. Is it actually helping? Like, so from an earlier age, training them to do that. Um, I would say, and also feeling like, and I think I've done a good job in modeling this, because going back to that whole having to wade through a lot of providers to find somebody, you know, there's a balance there, because you don't want to like provider hop. That does nobody, and
Yeah.
that doesn't do any good. But really kind of discerning, like, when have you kind of reached the limit of how much you can help me,
Mhm.
and then moving on. And so we've done that a couple of times. I recently switched all of them to the same psychiatrist,
Yeah.
which was a huge help. And
Yes.
specifically for my son, who does have autism and ADHD, we were with a provider who, I mean, for a couple years, and every year in the springtime, and you tell me if this has been an anecdotal or experience you've heard other parents talk about. There is something that happens, but March to June,
Mhm.
where my son gets so aggressive, manic, emotional, like the emotional regulation goes out the door. It's every single year, like clockwork, March to June.
Does he go to public school or?
Well, and
Yeah.
so he went to public school and then he went to private school and now he's homeschooled. And
Okay.
this is specifically why.
Yeah.
Because they cannot manage him
Yep.
um during that time period. And it is like clockwork. And
Mhm.
so every year the psychiatrist would tell me, you need to put in more structure. It's because of the change. I'm like, dude, I can't tell you. Listen, this is one whiteboard.
Yeah.
I have about 6 of them through my entire house. They
Like,
each
I don't
have
know how to give him more structure than I'm already giving him
like,
and still be a human being. Like,
right. And I'm like, it is not, there might be something there, but I really think there's something like physical, like,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
anyway. So he just kept going, like, you just need to build in more structure. It's this is intuitively, I'm telling you, this is not it.
yeah.
So we changed psychiatrists. I'm like, I need somebody who understands what we're going through here. And that's for not just for that like springtime reason, but like a lot of
Yeah.
other things. And I went to a new psychiatrist. She's like, almost every single parent on my caseload whose kids, have autism, and ADHD, but specifically autism, say that there's like this mania that happens in that time frame. And just having somebody say
Like,
that
acknowledge it. Just
made me
acknowledge.
feel less crazy. And I was at a homeschool event the other day, and so many parents that in my homeschool groups have pulled kids for almost these same reasons, like the special needs that
Mhm.
can't be met, or aren't met or whatever. And so I was talking to a parent of a kid, of a boy the same age as my child, the same diagnoses. And I explained that to her. I was like, this was just the school couldn't manage him during this period of time every single year. And she's like, are you kidding? That happens with mine too. Like she goes, I have never heard another parent say that they experience that every spring. And I'm like, I'm telling you, my psychiatrist says it's not uncommon. And so it's not uncommon. We're not going nuts. Just having that, just knowing like you're not making it up in your head
Yes. Just
is so
validating,
powerful.
just validating experiences can be, I mean, that's like why, that is essentially why I wanted to do this podcast, is because validating our experience versus what people say it should be, like just validating what it actually is so powerful.
Getting to the point though of changing the psychiatrist,
Yeah.
even though I had gone years of, like
Yeah.
him saying the same thing to me, and I still felt that like, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to be bad for him? Is this my issue? Sort of like what he's
Yeah.
indicating to me. Like, if it's my issue, I don't want to jerk my kid around as place to
Yep.
place. And so getting to that point, I feel like I need to give myself more permission to do that. Yeah, even being as experienced as I am in the system, on all ends of the system, I still go through that process. And so for parents who really absorb, have that traditional mindset or perspective of like, they're the experts, we're going to the experts, we follow what they say, and it should work, right? I just feel like this message needs to go out to people to like give yourself
Exactly.
permission to say, no, thanks. You're not working for my family. I am the consumer here. I mean, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, and it's not working out. And we're moving on to somebody else because it really has been the best move for all of my kids to see this new provider. So that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah. Trusting into the unknown is such a scary thing to do, especially when you have um kids who have different needs than it seems other kids do. Like trusting into your own intuition and your own just inner knowing, like that something is not right for them. is one of the most important things that we can do. And like, obviously, we want to listen to grounded advice. We want to listen to
Yeah.
the professionals who have had lots of experience with lots of different kids, right? And know those common threads that work with them. But they can get just as stuck in their own idea of what will work as we can. And defaulting to someone else's authority is a strong theme that we have learned in society. I mean, it benefits other people that we default to someone else's authority as opposed to our own.
Yeah. Right. And it's really a skill, like I said, a skill to develop, to give yourself permission to step out of that framework. Because, you know, that framework works for certain people and it doesn't work for other families.
Yeah.
And so when you think, and I was always growing up very much a rule follower,
Yeah.
like so much a rule follower. Okay. And so that tendency for me, is really, was a stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier, like where the March to June thing. I feel like personally, and with the people that I've spoken to, like a lot of times if we do have kids in a large school setting, either public school, private school, any kind of like larger school setting, there is so much, they have held it together for a full semester, and then like they had a break, so they got a little bit of time, but now it's March. It's like they've held it together for 2 months already, and they are all done.
Yeah.
Like, there's no more holding it together. And I know for my kids, it progressed as the years went on too, right? Because at first there were fewer demands. And then as they get older, the school system gives more and more demands, and they have to do homework. They have to do, I don't know. They tried to give my child homework in kindergarten, and I was like, we're not doing this. I refuse.
I'm a homework denier myself.
I
my kids are in school.
I'm like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. I can give you research on why this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny too, because I would also get the answer back sometimes from like the kindergarten teacher, like, I know I don't actually care if they do it. It's just that some parents get nervous if they don't have homework. I'm like, it's kindergarten. And so that's how deeply the idea of how things are supposed to work, what is supposed to happen, so that we're all just trying to get our kids to adulthood. Yeah. We're all just trying to get them there and set them up the best that we know how to succeed as adults. Right. And we all have all these different ideas about what does that, how to get there. And we really have to tune back in and see, like, okay, what is actually working in our life? Because it doesn't actually matter what the ideal version of parenthood is if it's not working.
Right. Yeah. Being a foster parent before being a birth parent, and also being a professional in the adoption field and foster care field, that helped me a little bit get primed for stepping outside of that mindset, because, and especially in the adoption field, there's such a focus when you're creating a new family, right? Like from adoption, that, you know, oftentimes we would recommend parents advocate with their school, no homework, regardless of the kid's age, right? Like no homework. Family time is family time. This is our attachment time. That is our job. That's our job. Whatever else is happening in this kid's life, you know, I have to put that, you know, the education stuff, I'm going to leave at school. Our job is family connection. And so the idea to sort of buck the system a little bit was already kind of introduced to me in a professional, manner. And that did help me, I think, prime me a little bit for saying no and setting those boundaries, like you're saying, like, we're not doing this. And come to find out, like, half of the teachers don't believe in it either, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we're trying to toe these lines
Yep.
of stuff that the people who are telling us where the line is don't even think that's where the line should be. So
And it's all so convoluted, and it's like when people say, oh, everybody's autistic or ADHD these days, and it's like, I don't think so, because there's a lot of people out here still just kind of doing the things that they were told to do,
yeah,
and not questioning, like, because I question everything and I want to know why it works. It's not that we want to necessarily even say no to it, but we want to understand.
yeah,
We want to understand what the reason is for it. If
yeah,
we, which is something I have to do with my kids all the time, is if they can understand the reason a thing needs to happen or a thing needs to be done a certain way, they're much more likely to either follow along and be like, okay, yes, that makes sense, let's do it that way, or ask a follow-up question to say, can we do it this way instead?
mm-hmm.
And so that open dialogue is so much less stressful, so much less, like, there's not as much contention in my household anymore, because I can just I've gotten used to explaining all of the things that they need explanations for,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I had conditioned myself not to ask for as a child, because I got punished for them, or you got yelled at for asking questions too much, and then you just stopped at some point. And so then when you have kids, you have to reparent yourself to say, no one is coming to yell at me, no one is coming to tell me that this is going to be bad, like that I'm bad, or that I'm not, that I just want to make trouble.
yeah. And it's interesting too, because as you're describing how you go about, the explaining and everything like that. For my son, that works. Like, he does need to know, or he wants to comply, but he wants to also understand, and he also wants everything to be very predictable, et cetera, et cetera. Um, my younger one, who has more of a PDA profile,
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter if she understands what you're saying or not. It's what she's, sometimes it will work. Sometimes it will work, but that fight or flight mode that she goes into
Yeah.
is a little bit different than the one and for different reasons. And so getting them out of the survival, reaction is different for each one. And then I have one that's not neurodivergent. She just wants to be living her like little life. But she also, like, I don't have to I tell her this is the rule, she's following it. I tell her here's the schedule, she's like, cool, what's next? Like, I didn't
I
know. Like,
cannot
I have
imagine.
4 kids, and one is like that. Now, I'm not saying
Yeah.
she doesn't have other things going on. She's
Yeah.
9, there's normal typical stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know that that's what the experience
Of
could be
most
like.
kids could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on here? But it's such a striking difference
Mhm.
that I then have to, with my 3 other kids, the fact that I'm single parenting, working, homeschooling, I have
Yeah.
my own business on the weekends, like, no wonder I'm overstimulated,
Mhm.
have a short fuse. 7 to 9 is my witching out at PM is my
Yeah.
witching hour. I'll just say
Yeah.
that. Like, please don't, nobody asks me questions, nobody. And so
Yeah.
so our own, like, neurodivergent stuff and
Yeah.
our own overstimulation and our own stuff, like, trying to figure out what are trigger points for me. For me, it's more like the trigger time. Again, 7 to 9 PM. I'm
Because
done.
you have kept it together all day.
Yes.
You have kept
Yes.
it. You have, so a lot of times when I talk to parents, but also like about the parent, right? Because a lot of times my work ends up being, yes, we're talking about the kids, but we're really talking about ourselves and talking about how we can become calmer and more able to parent the way that the children that we have, not the children that like other people think we should have, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of times that comes down to our own accommodations and our own like demands, because there's a theory that PDA is just the intersection of autism and ADHD, and the conflict that just creates internally. So to lessen that conflict, sometimes we have to lower our demands way lower than we think that we should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
so much less. And that can be so hard when we're the adult and we have the things that we have to do, but like finding all of the things that we don't actually have to do, that we can opt out of, whether we feel like we're going to be judged by other people or not. What can we let go of?
Yeah. And so a couple things there as far as like the, not being, the outside perspectives and, caring about them. I feel like in some ways I've swung so far in almost in an unhealthy way to the other side. Like y'all can just jump off a cliff right now, like, and I'll come off like that, like don't even say a daggone word.
All the fucks have gone out the window. They've disappeared.
They're so gone, right? And that kind of comes off a little bit like not very well in society, but like I feel like I'm so over it. I'm so over it. And so if you don't, just go over there. I don't need to deal with you right now.
If you're not going to be part of the solution, go away.
Exactly. The other thing that so speaking of like the interventions and what helps, again, with my 7-year-old, she's my no kid, but not just my no kid, like, because there's that distinction between like oppositional defiant disorder and PDA, right? And like there's just so much unknown and misunderstood, etc. But I felt like, first of all, validation. Let's first start with validation. I felt like I was definitely on the right track, thinking like this possibly is going on with her, and she can't even help it. Like it is a fight or flight sort of response, right? Not a desire to like push my button.
She doesn't want to be doing it even any more than you want her to be doing it.
Right. But her tutor, and I had never mentioned PDA to her tutor, really anybody, but her tutor saw her in one of these sort of reactions one day and was like, have you ever heard of PDA?
Why, yes, I have.
Like, as a matter of fact. But it's almost like a physical, you can see.
Yep.
She's kind of being defiant. She's not doing what you're asking, and it's so irrational in the moment. You like from the out, that's how it's perceived by me. But her eyes are sort of like, somebody help me.
Yeah, it's a nervous system reaction.
Somebody help me. This is like involuntary sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have to do for her now, so for my 9-year-old who has autism and ADHD, yes, I do have to like say 5 minutes until this and that, or 2 minutes until this and that, like that I do have to do. But for her, I have to sort of do that, but also leave her. So if I ask her, for example, I need you to pick up this towel, right? It's not like a routine change. It's a sort of transition into a directive mode change. So if I need her to pick up the towel, I'm not going to be like 2 minutes to pick up the towel, 5 minutes to pick up the towel. I'm going to say, this towel needs to be picked up. It needs to be picked up before we go outside to play. I'm going to give you a few minutes to make, to decide how that's going to happen. And then I physically have to leave. Like I cannot be there to like impose. I have to give her this physical and emotional space to work it out.
Yeah.
without that
to
pressure.
settle into the idea that there is something I need to do. How can I go about doing that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it has to be, so you know the other definition for PDA, right? So
Yeah.
pathological demand avoidance, but also
Demand for
persistent
autonomy.
drive for
Yeah.
autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, so at times, pathological demand avoidance feels more appropriate because it does feel pathological for me
Yeah.
sometimes. It
Yeah.
feels like I have no control over what I am able to do. But that is usually because I am already overstimulated, overwhelmed, constantly like have too many demands on myself. So the persistent drive for autonomy is the preemptive, in my opinion. Like it is if I can give myself enough autonomy, if I can give my middle child is this one, is the PDA, the if I I've explored all kinds of avenues trying to understand him better, because we do have a lot of struggles. But if you ever look into human design, it's interesting because he is a projector, and he's a very very rare type of projector, and the basically like what it comes down to is his will is his center. Like that is what drives him. And
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't rely on anyone else's ego or will. He knows what he wants to do and he's going to do it. And he
Yeah.
believes in himself. He genuinely believes in himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very challenging child to parent and keep safe from
Yeah.
himself and from other things.
Yeah.
But it also helped me understand him because I'm like, okay, so he if he it helps me lean into the idea that if I can give him enough information that he understands, like not just like explain it to him, but like expose him through repeated patterns of like, hey, so if we leave stuff on the ground in the living room, because that's like one of my triggers, right, is stuff on the ground all over the living room because I have trouble with interoception and proprioception. And so I am likely to hurt myself if I don't know where things are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to trip and then I can fall and then I can hurt myself and not be able to do the things with him that he wants to do. So it's like leading that train of thought all the way through
Mm-hmm.
to see, okay, this is the inciting incident and this is the eventual outcome.
Right.
And like helping him see those things does help a lot with the PDA of like also giving him plenty of space, plenty of like, hey, I would really love if you can help me with this. Not so much a demand or a like a an it's more like an invitation.
Yeah.
Giving him an invitation of like,
Yeah.
hey, do you know how you can be really helpful if you can do this for me?
Right. Yeah. All the different techniques, right? I
So
mean,
many.
and
And they're all different for each kid. Each
yeah,
kid is different.
for each child, it's different. So yeah, I'm feeling you.
I will say, like, I wanted to ask, what are some really wonderful things that have happened because of, like, what are your greatest successes?
Woo. Greatest successes. Let's see. I found a routine that so the the whole behavior chart, routine, schedule, all this stuff, like we talked about how it needs to change up enough, like it has to be flexible enough and novelty enough to keep interest. And I have found sort of like a routine that is flexible enough, but routine enough that we can kind of go in and out of it, but it is familiar. So they'll say like, are we doing cares today? Cares is our routine, and it is a So C is clean up. Like, so like whatever your little area is right now, that's the C. A, and you have to do that before you move on to A. And A is something academic. So like they need to read a book, blah, 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 blah. R is responsibilities. That's the chores they need to do. So like it's a progression, and it's not necessarily like this time to this time, this time to this time, because it'll take each kid a little bit different time to do it. And it's just that they have to do this before that, before that, before that. R, and then E is electronics. And then S is select play. So like outside, Legos, Play-Doh, whatever. Like, and we just constantly do that loop. Now, if we have like a doctor's appointment or somebody has a sport, we'll hop out of the loop, we'll go do the sport and come back into what we left off with.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of proud of that.
Strategy. Yeah.
It's been like a year since I started that, and they still are like, well, they'll wake up and be like, are we doing cares today? Sometimes sometimes it's we'll be out all day and I'll be like, no, today's not a cares day, but here's what, I'm going to ask you to do or whatever. But it's foundational, and it's like familiar enough that they know it. They know what's expected of them, but we don't have to do it like rigidly. It's not like,
I think that's so important for neurodivergent kids, is a loose structure that is malleable to our life.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because we have days where we're like at least 2 days a week where we have a co-op that we go to, and that's, even though it's not like as long as a full day of regular school, like it's still, for us, that's a lot. That's a lot energetically to like be around that many people for that long. And so when we come home, like I do not expect anything except maybe some tidying. Like we're gonna, if whatever we got out, we're gonna put up or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I am more type A type, like because I need this, I need the schedule. And so homeschooling has been a whole different exploration, like what works for me and them.
Yeah.
And also giving yourself, again, that whole giving yourself grace and being flexible enough that like when it doesn't happen that day, you're not having this whole like I'm a failure thing. To offset that a little bit, we do homeschool year round. So that's my plan is,
it's more consistent too.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels better when we all have a consistent expectation. And so that then when there's sickness, when there are times when it's better to like go visit family in the middle of the year, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, so it's flexible that way. I wish we could do a more involved co-op, but I work full time. I mean, I work. I don't. At least my boss thinks I'm working. Don't show this to my boss. Okay. No, I am. But thankfully, I have a job where only some days of the week I have to be in the office, and they do allow me to bring my kids. And also, thankfully, when I'm home, I can I wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and I'll do work, and then, and then it's kind of like throughout the day. And I'm also doing work after they go to bed. That doesn't give me a lot of downtime, but thankfully I've got that ability to do that. But figuring out how that all works together has been quite a journey. And then you ask, about like your current stim or your current, rabbit sort of thing. Like that is it. Like the key to managing it all. Like that's the thing. I just bought a binding machine. I'm like here, day and night putting together like workbooks for their, their curriculum, and how do we get organized? I'm scrolling Marketplace to figure out what is the organizational tool that I need that's going to make all the difference. I don't.
Do you feel like that exists?
No, there isn't one. There just isn't. There are things that can make your day smoother.
Yeah.
No doubt. Something I had to do because I can't possibly fit it all in with 4 kids being, here by here myself. And I have 2 ladies who cook for me twice a week. So like one once a week and one another
Yeah.
time a week. And it's cheaper than buying fast food. It's cheaper and healthier than buying
Yeah.
fast food. And I put that out on our neighborhood Facebook book group, and I'm like, does anybody just like, I don't know, have a big family and want to cook for an extra 5 people, like whatever. So, a couple people stepped up, and I've been doing that for a couple months now, and it's a big help.
I think that is an amazing accommodation. I love that.
I mean,
And just putting it out to your local community,
yeah,
because like, of course, there's somebody who wouldn't mind making a little extra cash, but it isn't a huge deal for them to just make a few extra meals.
yeah.
And it helps you so much.
It does help me a lot, because they usually give me enough for like 2 days. So then I have like most of my week covered. Of course, my kids are like, we're having tacos again. Like I'm like, listen, this is what we got.
I will say, like, a lot of what I focus on in homeschool at different times is a lot of times, like, it's in the summer, because I'm like, the summer is for life skills.
Right.
But I mean, we do work on them all year, but I will focus extra. My first career was a pastry chef. So I, I, a lot of times the kids want to learn those things. And I'm like, okay, mom has to have enough patience and enough, I have to have enough executive functioning
Yeah.
to be able to lead you through it. Right.
Yeah.
Because I want to teach you the way that it's going to be easiest in the end. But to do that, we have to work on foundational skills. So, but once they know how to make eggs, once they know how to make like more complicated things, it does get a little bit easier. And because kids are kids, and maybe because they're neurodivergent, I don't know. I don't have neurotypical kids, so I don't know. But I mean, yeah, they need reminders. They need like, hey, how do you do this? How do you cook this? Can you come and do it with me? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I will stand with you, and I will try my best to keep my hands off of the project, because I want you to practice. And I believe in you, and you are capable, you are strong, you are like ready to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, those do get a little easier as time goes on.
I mean, I have a 17-year-old, and this child will not pick up to boil a pot of water. Okay. Like, she's not going to do it. But at school, she's in this like culinary, like this, I don't know, she's in this like cooking class,
Yeah.
and she's in 11th grade, and she gets rave reviews from her teacher, and is like the lead, like she's always coming up with these creative things that she's doing. She's getting an A, and she struggles in school. Like, but so this class, she is just,
Yeah.
you won't even make mac and cheese.
It is also a different setting.
I know.
It is a completely different setting. And I will say, like, as a chef, I don't want to cook when I get home. I don't want to cook at all. It's been a few years since I've been in a commercial kitchen, but like when I worked all the time in a kitchen, I didn't want to do anything with food when I got home.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So and I think that's a pretty common thread with chefs, is like, once you get home, it's going to be like pasta and sauce, or a quesadilla, or something super simple.
Yeah. That's basically what I do. If I'm cooking, it's nuggies, fries, quesadilla, or spaghetti. Like,
it's a rotation. It's a rotation, just really similar to that here too, of like the 5 things that everyone is usually okay with.
Right.
And I have us write down our safe foods as well. Make lists of safe foods and medium safe foods, like usually, and then never foods.
Right.
Because I mean, sometimes that changes.
Yeah.
But it's good to help me be able to look at and remember, for like my own working memory, which can be laggy sometimes, and be like, okay, this kid does not want maple syrup. They don't like syrup at all. It's too sticky. They don't like syrup, but they do want a waffle. And this other kid will not eat a waffle without syrup.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that struggle. Definitely feel that struggle. And it does change. It changes. And it even changes in an environment, because my kids will eat just about anything at my mother's house. Like, and she's like, oh, well, I'm cooking this. And I'm like, Mom, they're not going to eat it. They're not going to eat it. I've tried. And they gobble it up. And I'm like, y'all are very mysterious children.
I just accept and build. And like, I'm like, okay.
You know, I guess we're going to my mom's for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't know. And so I have one kid, my non-neurodivergent kid, for some reason is some type of semi-vegetarian. I don't know where that comes from, because I am not a vegetarian. I know lots of people are vegetarians, but we've never introduced that concept. And literally since she's been about 3 or 4 years old, she's like, nope, thank you to the meat.
My oldest is my most vegetarian. Like, they call themselves flexitarian, because I always keep like processed meats in the house, because pepperoni and salami and like lunch meat are always the same. Like, that is a big thing, I think, with a lot of kids that are neurodivergent, is they are always the same. Pepperoni, it's gonna be the same every single time you take it out of the package. And it's terrible for us, yes, but it's also an easy snack with protein.
Yeah.
And I am willing to accept that, you know?
Right. Yeah, me too. And, you know, now that she doesn't like the thought that it was an animal. So that is very much a vegetarian sort of thing. But she will eat like chicken nuggets, like you're saying, the processed stuff. And I guess maybe because it's like doesn't resemble, I don't know. Like,
it is much more disconnected too, I think. I think that, because I mean, my oldest also has some issues of like, but I don't want to eat an animal. And I'm like, I know. And I make a lot of vegetarian stuff anyway, because I like to eat veggie forward food. But unfortunately, like, my middle kid is a meat eater for sure. And loves meat.
That's my 9-year-old boy. Yeah.
So if I don't make meat, I don't know if he's gonna get protein, or if he's gonna get like other, like, if he has meat, sometimes he'll eat the other stuff, you know. But it's all just a balancing act.
Yep. I mean, with any 4 kids, it's going to be. Then throwing in the other, you know, things that we deal with, it's even more chaotic. But that is one of the accommodations I've tried to make in my life, is I reached out. Now, was that something? So I did that, and then a couple weeks later, somebody in that group had a problem with a comment that I made on another post. Went back and read all of my previous posts, and basically was like, you can't even cook for your kids. You're the worst mother ever, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, listen, this is where all the fucks went out the door again, right? Like, but like sometimes you get burned.
Yeah.
And you're reaching out and asking for help. And so that is a hard part of it too, is again, going back to that public perception and like, are you a failure, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like 90% in the I don't care category, but there's always that 10% that's like, you know what?
You just want to be loved, and you want to be known, and you want to be cared for, and know that other people see who you are. And it's so important and so hard sometimes to hold on to the idea that, like, we know that we are good parents, and that we are doing our best, and that even if some days our best is really shitty, like, we are still doing our best.
Right. Yeah.
And also that so often when people are sending judgment toward us, that is just whatever it is that's going on in their lives, and whatever it is that like has triggered them in their like reaction to us, that's about them. That's not about us. As long as we know that we are trying and listening and open and doing what we can. That's
Yeah.
all we can do.
So totally agree with you. It just, it stings sometimes,
Yes.
still. But along the lines of like other sort of life accommodations,
Yeah.
one is I brought all of my kids under the same psychiatric provider. Like they were in all different ones. And so
that is so much less stressful when you can get
yes,
under the same one.
yes, it very much is. Let's see. I also have my own like behavioral intervention. So like I try to be pretty transparent with the kids about like what mommy's struggling with and what I need to do better and et cetera, so that they're like open conversations. And I have a cuss jar on the mantle.
Yeah.
Which my 9-year-old boy is very happy to keep track of. I will tell you. He's got it. Let me tell you, he's got it right here. And I call him keeper of the cusses because he will remind me, you owe 3 quarters. While we were out at the store, you flipped somebody off and you cussed them out. So you owe 3 quarters right now.
Kids are really great about that.
Thank you, sir, keeper of the cusses. Here they are. I'm really trying not to, but I need to be held accountable. You are right. Like, so, I try where I'm not perfect, but I do, that's part of the process of like trying to have all of us be accountable to each other.
Yeah.
And not in a disrespectful way, but like we all want to be better every day and we're all gonna also make mistakes. And so those are the things that I try to, instill.
Yeah. I think like having that as like just being that and having them see you doing the work and experiencing that as well is one of the most helpful things for them to learn. It's okay to mess up. It's okay. And we will keep working on being better. Like messing up is not the end of the world.
Yeah. Now I gotta move into the phase where I'm like holding them accountable to the cuss jar because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll model it first. Of course, that's been a while now. Sometimes it's like I hear them in the other room and I don't know, they're dropping some
Yeah. I mean, I think a certain level that is like normal and honestly like a rite of passage that they're cursing between themselves and or by themselves, and that they're doing their best to not do it in front of us, right? Because I think that that's just a part of growing up.
So I think if it's used against somebody else, that's where it needs to, the line is drawn. But like, I know my son, especially when he's playing like Roblox or Minecraft or something like that, his verbal stems go off the charts at that time. Like I will hear across the house, like just these like high pitched squeals and all they go off the charts when he's doing that. He doesn't understand. And that includes the cusses.
The cursing. Yep. Yeah, so, we have a lot of similarities. Yeah.
So yeah, the stimming, I think that overstimulates me.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I have to be cognizant that that's a trigger for me as well. And I have one, so my twins, one is severely hearing impaired. And then the other, so my girl is severely hearing impaired and my boy has autism with really like a lot of auditory sensitivity, right? Okay. So, I mean, I have one that does not understand how loud she's being all the time. Yeah. And then one who gets triggered from the loud noises.
And that is so hard.
That has been interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's like, be quiet. And I'm like, she doesn't know. She just yelled that. Like, she doesn't know that since they were little. So
we have noise canceling headphones just all over the house.
We have them everywhere. Everywhere. The car, bedrooms, the living room. Like we have them everywhere. Okay. We have them to the point, and specifically my 7 and 9-year-old often need them. Now, my 7-year-old is not, there is definitely some sensory stuff going on, and the medical things that she goes through plays into that as well. But it's to the point where my child with severe hearing impairment, she wears them too sometimes. I just to fit in, I guess. I don't know. But I'm
Because
like,
it's like,
whatever
oh,
makes
this
you
is
feel
what we
better.
do.
Whatever makes you feel better, that's
This
fine.
is just what we do as a family.
Funny. Yeah, so she wears them at night even. She's like, "Oh, people are, I'm like, "You don't have your hearing aids in." Like I don't know
Yeah.
how you're hearing anything, but whatever. Okay, so she sleeps with them.
Maybe it's comfortable.
Yeah,
Maybe it keeps her ears warm. Maybe it keeps her
maybe.
ears being warm.
That could be.
Yeah. This has been a lovely conversation. Is there anything else you wanted to share or talk about before we hop off?
I guess just addressing, and I think we've done it through the conversation, but just that very real feeling of shame, guilt, fear, doubt, all of those feelings. As a parent in general, I think parents go through that. But if a parent of a neurotypical kid is questioning themselves like once a day, we're going through this cycle like 100 times a day. We're like,
Yeah.
did I handle that okay? Did I make it worse? Did I,
Did I ruin them for
attitude
life?
did I use? Exactly. Am I traumatizing
Yeah.
them? Should I keep a journal of like, so when they're adult in therapy, like their therapist can just open the journal and see all the things that they need to process, and get to it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just every day I have to remind myself of the grace that they need, but then also extend it to myself because that's the hardest part. The self-care, the grace, that applies to me too. So I
Yeah.
forget that oftentimes, and I think that we have to hear it a lot
Yeah.
to get that.
And that even if we, like, I have to go back frequently and remind myself that every single terrible situation that I've ever gone through, I am alive right now. Like, I have gotten through. I don't know sometimes how I got through, but I am here and I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. And they will be too.
They will be.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like we can't like, the fact that we're trying is a lot, because if we didn't care, then we wouldn't be trying as hard as we are.
Yeah.
And that they are going to be okay. And I mean, everybody needs therapy at some point, right? So like, I'm just trying to get them to adulthood and need a little bit less therapy than I do.
Less therapy.
That's the only goal.
You're going to do 5 stints in the therapy chair, not 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
This has been an episode of the Neurodivergent Parenting Podcast with Melissa Cox. We are part of the Neurodiversity Media Network. You can find the Neurodiversity Media Network on YouTube and anywhere that podcasts are. You can find Melissa Cox on Facebook at Melissa Cox, Blue Sky at melissa-cox.bsky.social, on TikTok and Instagram at living_with_disaster. And you can always catch us right here again for the next episode. Thanks for joining us.